he was a hard worker. My brother, he can work. I think he had 2 or 3 jobs back then. So he disappeared in the morning. I didn't see him until maybe midnight or so. And then he was off again in like 2 or 3 hours.
Wow.
And for a whole week. So that was my introduction to the United States.
Wow.
You gotta work hard. Nothing is handed to you. Money's not gonna fall from from trees, and you can't just harvest it anywhere. That was my first exposure to the United States. So talk of night and day. Yeah, it was a big culture shock, to say the least. From seeing all the skyscrapers and everything in Dubai and Abu Dhabi to then moving to literally a ghetto, comparatively. Honestly. So when I landed in New York, JFK, my brother picked me up, took me to where he lived. I had no idea what a basement was back then. So he took me to where he lived in New Jersey, Jersey City. It was at night. I remember going to this dark neighborhood. I couldn't recognize anywhere. We didn't enter the front door. We went somewhere to the side and down some stairs, and that was where I slept. The next morning I went out and I couldn't recognize where I was.
When my parents would come, there was this smell, scent. The luggage, it just smelled different. Chocolate smelled different,
Right.
Being able to take dollars to school in Nigeria and say, okay, my parents are in town. Here's $20 for you,
But growing up, so I had uncles in the States. Uncles growing up, I'd heard stories about, they would come once in the blue moon, like once in 6 years. But I know each time they would come around, there would be a huge party, celebration, and the way they carried themselves. I'm from America. So growing up, one day I'm gonna go to that America and see for myself, And then after high school, I traveled to Ghana where I studied. I did my bachelor's over there.
Mm-hmm.
When I came back, I traveled to Dubai. So I lived in the United Arab Emirates for 2 years. So I had a glimpse of abroad, so to speak.
Growing in the village, right? We had these guys that they've gone to school out of town and they'll always come back, right? Then when they come during the holidays, you guys sit in the market square. And they'll be giving us the vibes of the city and stuff like that. The first thing they said about America that I carried that picture and I was moving with it was that there's no, in America, right? Every cable is underground. And America is the most quiet place on earth. No noise.
I guess I've never been to New York.
Yeah. So now I had that picture. Hello viewers, welcome to the Wisdom Bank podcast studio, where we bring the community together, educate the community, and share important things that matter most to the community. So today I'm so excited, I'm so happy to have Mr. Mike over there on my right. Mr. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mr. Innocent. Thank you.
Thank you. And also too, my mentor.
Say that again.
Oh boy. Mr. Bruno, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having
Awesome.
me.
And also to want to give a lot of credit to our camera and mic man, Mr. Harris. So thank you all for tuning in today.
Awesome.
America is very interesting.
Tell me about it.
Each time we are leaving from back home, right? Our mindset about America is different. And when we land in America, we see something completely different. Mr. Mike.
Yes, sir.
What did you know about America? And what did you saw when you landed in America? Or what is that one thing that each time you remember America, you're like, am I in America?
Good question, by the way. It takes me back to the first day I got here and, what I thought America would look like. I think for me, it was a peace of mind thing.
Really? Peace of
Right.
mind.
Yeah, peace of mind. Besides the glamour of New York and the street lights, when you see the movies, when you look at Hollywood and how we latch onto that, It was just movies for me when it comes to America. My
Hmm.
parents lived here, so I was raised by my dad's sisters. So yeah, I would say the Hollywood Center and the scene kind of painted that picture. So when I came here, I was expecting this glamour, this peace of mind, do anything you want, everything is attainable. Life could be so easy. When my parents would come, there was this smell, the scent, the luggage. It just smelled different. The chocolate smelled different.
Right.
Being able to take dollars to school in Nigeria and say, okay, my parents are in town. Here's $20 for you. And just because I was in Nigeria, I left there just as two. So I had my persona, the suffering, the struggle there, the reality. But coming here, it was the peace of mind that I thought I could see. I just saw how busy everyone was,
Right.
how secluded. I thought I would see more of a community, but yeah,
Not
I
so.
don't want to go too deep, but yeah, peace of mind. Yeah.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes, sir.
America is, Wall Street is here. You have seen those beaches, in California, everything is sleeping and this, that. Was that the picture you had before coming to the United States?
Well, most definitely. I remember growing up. So I had uncles in the States. Uncles growing up, I'd heard stories about, they would come once in a blue moon, like once in 6 years. But I know each time they would come around, there would be a huge party,
Oh,
celebration,
man.
and the way they carried themselves. I'm from America. So
United
growing up, one day I'm going to go to that America and see for myself, And then after high school, I traveled to Ghana where I studied. I did my bachelor's over there.
Mm-hmm.
When I came back, I traveled to Dubai. So I lived in the United Arab Emirates for 2 years. So I had a glimpse of abroad, so to speak.
Oh.
So I saw what the United Arab Emirates was: Dubai, Abu Dhabi. I saw the luxury over there, and in my mind, I'm saying nothing can top the United States of America. Like, come on, it's the pinnacle of luxury. So obviously, they're probably copying what America is doing. So moving to the States in 2016, in my mind, I was gonna get a better version of Dubai. Honestly. So when I landed in New York, JFK, my brother picked me up, took me to where he lived. I had no idea what a basement was back then. So he took me to where he lived in New Jersey, Jersey City. It was at night. But I remember going to this dark neighborhood. I couldn't recognize anywhere. We didn't enter the front door. We went somewhere to the side and down some stairs, and that was where I slept. The next morning I went out and I couldn't recognize where I was. Because the streets were dirty. The place was literally ghetto. And Garfield Avenue. I still remember the name till today. And I remember thinking to myself, this is probably a different version of my village, because this is not the United States I came for. But that was my first exposure to the United States.
Yes.
And then he was a hard worker. My brother, he can work. I think he had 2 or 3 jobs back then. So he disappeared in the morning. I didn't see him until maybe midnight or so. And then he was off again in like 2 or 3 hours.
Wow.
And for a whole week. So that was my introduction to the United States.
Wow.
You got to work hard. Nothing is handed to you. Money's not going to fall from trees. And you can't just harvest it anywhere. That was my first exposure to the United States. So talk of night and day. Yeah, it was a big
shift.
culture shock, to say the least. From seeing all the skyscrapers and everything in Dubai and Abu Dhabi to then moving to literally a ghetto, comparatively. That was
That's crazy.
Quite a shift in my mind.
So would you say America is the ghetto version of Dubai?
I wouldn't say that for sure. I wouldn't say that because, there are parts of the United States, depends on which
where
part of the
you,
United States
yeah,
you're
where you
in.
find yourself. Yeah.
If you find yourself in LA or New York, in Wall Street or whatever,
and all those
you can
places
do a
have their
comparison.
own,
Pros and cons, goods and bad.
man. When I left back home, growing in the village, right? We had these guys that they've gone to school out of town and they'll always come back, right? Then when they come during the holidays, you guys sit in the market square. And they'll be giving us the vibes of the city and stuff like that. The first thing they said about America that I carried that picture and I was moving with it was that there's no, in America, right? Every cable is underground. And America is the most quiet place on earth. No noise.
I guess I've never been to New York.
Yeah. so now I had that picture.
That's crazy.
Then when I landed at the airport and I was picked, I asked my aunt then who picked me up. I said, like, have we already arrived? Through life, I'm because
Is America?
I saw cables up because I still had that notion. You understand?
Mhm.
I watched stuff in the movies
Mhm.
and stuff like that, right?
Mhm.
But then a car, as we're just exiting the airport, this car passed us without an exhaust. I was like, man, pop, 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 pop. The noise was unbearable. Then we came, where we're living, right? The apartment was closer to the road. I could not sleep.
Oh.
The sirens were just all over.
Exactly.
And I asked her that, is this America or are we still to continue? Immediately
man,
there
that's
and
funny.
then,
Uh-huh.
I said, I need to reset my mind to embrace the reality of where I am. The second shock, the next day, because I slept, then the next day he took us to go for shopping, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then somebody asked me in the store, you got $1, man? And I'm like, I said, America is a giving nation. How can someone be begging for $1? So you understand? So these are some of the two things that till
That's
this
funny.
day, right?
Oh, man.
11 years later on, these things will never leave me. I never knew that they were beggars in America, you know? So that's my first cultural shock.
Okay. And I was going to interject.
Yeah.
I guess I asked my question differently.
Mm.
But when you look at the social ordinance and the expectations, and then you look at the infrastructural, attraction,
Mhm.
when you look at a system and order,
Yes.
when you look at efficiency, when you look at government presence,
Mhm.
and then most importantly, the social interaction, the socioeconomic bearings. Yeah, I was probably bamboozled by America's standing with all those things, and I was like, wow. Even hospitals, for instance, I thought it would be an easy process, but yeah, with your private physician, but when you go to the actual hospital,
Mhm.
to an extent, it's almost as crazy as in Nigeria, and that's just even with them having access to those systems and softwares and telecommunications, spectrum. But for you, where would you say you saw the biggest culture shock? Was it on a social level? Was it on the intellectual aspect? The people, the kids you were dealing with were they here? Were you chasing intelligence when you came here? Did you feel like, oh, what? And infrastructurally and all that. So I wanted to kind of see where that was going,
Mm-hmm.
or just ask you.
So our experiences may be different. Talk of systems. When you have an up and coming system, they're trying to learn from what already exists and make it more efficient.
Make it better. Yeah.
So because I lived in Dubai and I saw how the
Saw
system,
that.
the train came on time, the buses, everything was structured. You don't litter. You don't. Everything is kind of organized, so to speak. All right, down to their labor force, you name it. Of course, they're a country of mostly immigrants comparatively. About 30% are, locals. The rest
Really?
of the United Arab Emirates are all immigrants from
What?
India, from
Yeah.
Nepal, from Pakistan.
I didn't know that.
They literally, I would dare to say, run
But
that country.
how?
All right, but they have a very structured system. So when I arrived here, I've got into trains. They're clean, on time, everything's organized. And I come here, and I'm getting to the subway in New York,
New York.
and everywhere is dirty, outdated.
The rats are bigger than
Every-
dogs.
Everywhere was just messed up. To me, that was one of the culture shocks. And of course, I was working in Manhattan at the time in a grocery store, and so I would ride a bike. So I bought a bike. I would ride a bike to the train station, park it, hook it there, then get a train to work.
Mm-hmm.
Then I came back one evening after work, and I couldn't find my bike.
Yo.
So my bike was so they had unhooked the front tire. So they left the tire there because it was
But it
hooked
took
to a horse.
everything.
They took the rest of, and it
They
was
took the frame.
It was shocking to me because every other bike over 500 or so bikes were up there, and mine was gone. So to me, it was really shocking, that my bike was stolen in the United States of America. It made no sense to me, and why mine out of every other bike over here? So
The land of milk and honey.
yeah,
you know?
to say to say culture shock is probably an understatement. It's a recalibration. What you thought America was and what it is, and then
Okay.
having to adapt, just like you mentioned. But if you talk of systems, because I can now do a comparison between here and what I saw in the United Arab Emirates,
Mhm.
and I would say, in my humble opinion, they are. And of course, they're a newer economy, of course, so they have less things to maintain, and they are not as big, so they can probably manage things. But the systems are way more efficient. Their government has a hand on most of what goes on there, simply because probably they can still manage stuff based on their population and
Yeah, and I was gonna, make a comment towards Asia and just the outlook on organizations. And
Before coming here, I'd already gone to school.
mm-hmm.
I was
Undergrad or
a
grad?
literate. I already had my degree,
Okay.
project management.
Oh, nice.
So I had projects I'd already written.
In Cameroon or
Yes.
Yeah.
And I wrote my first book while in Cameroon.
Whoa.
Yes.
Wow.
I haven't published that book. It's called The Power of Faith. And when I got here
Mm-hmm.
and I started, mixing here and there, and I went to school.
Mm-hmm.
The first cultural shock was that Americans don't read. No, let me put it this way. The generation, our generation that I met, I would say they don't read. Because I look at the educational ethics that I brought from back home and I was applying it here. I discovered that I was over laboring myself.
Wow. So you're working too hard.
Because first, I used a laptop in my last stage, right? Then when I came to the educational system here, everything was like, guys already had laptops and they were like, they were using Google. So I was still going to the library using normal textbook. Then when they give an exam or the test, that was when I knew that when you put everything in quotation mark. Because when I came here, I studied computer science.
Mm-hmm.
Then the first thing I now saw the power of exposure. The first cultural shift and that I saw, right? American kids are exposed at the very early stage, which give them an age to us. Mm-hmm. But I will say this categorically, that their exposure, they don't do the best of their exposure. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. Because like you'll be in class, the teacher is teaching and someone will be playing a game and you'll be hearing like, this they just got this release, right? Then to me, it was an opportunity to go to school here, right? So we want to use, because this is what makes the difference between us, especially immigrants that come here. Mm-hmm. We want to make good use of the opportunities that we have, right?
Definitely.
So I will tell you that the guy whom I was with in school, he just texted me on Facebook. The guy have not had his degree. Yes, born and bred here. Now, I was here. I paid my tuition. I'm paying my rent. But this guy is in their house, but he's complaining about internet. So the second thing I had is that we have different culture and we have different mind shift. The way we approach our things, our dedication, our seriousness, it's a real opportunity for us.
Yeah.
Like someone like me, nobody knew if somebody said I would be in America, they will slap you. I said, now who died in the monkey banana? So those are some cultural shocks that has really, played a very important role then. Okay. Yeah, so.
Like that.
So, what I never figured out, and this is me growing up in Cameroon, the English-speaking part of Cameroon, of course. having studied my entire life in English. Then I come to the US and I finally decide to go to college. And they tell me I got to take English as a second language. That was the most.
Very daunting. Disrespectful.
Well, I didn't do it. So long story short, I didn't do it.
Oh, wow.
Because I couldn't reconcile the fact that,
They thought.
after everything I know, I still have to go prove myself in school and start from scratch, literally. So I didn't have to do that. And one other thing that, that dawned on me almost immediately I came in here, and that almost never happens for most people, is that I started because I knew America was I had listened, watched movies, Land of the Free, Land of the Brave, the
Right.
Wealthiest Country, da da da. You can make it in the US, da da da. So when I came in, I was very keen on finding out how can you make it in this country. I was very keen on that, and I've never followed the norm. I don't settle. I challenge status quo. That's me. And in my head, I couldn't figure out why my brother would leave in the morning and not come back till midnight, 1 a.m., then leave as early as 4 a.m. again and not come back. I couldn't reconcile. It didn't make sense to me at all. So I had to start figuring out, what do I need to do differently
To not be in that position.
to not be like that? All right. So that probably for me was what triggered my enthusiasm for, how do people make it in this country? Right. And that's probably, shaped how I look at things and how I adjust or adapt to pivoting when I
You
start
pivot.
getting comfortable.
That's you remember we are talking about that to bring that in our next episode on like
Mhm.
you've landed, you've settled. So what's the next? So when I was in school, this similar thing happened to me as well. One of my teachers said, "You're writing all your essays in British English.
Dang.
I want you to write it in American English." I was so pissed off. I told him that grade it in British English because I'm already an adult. I'm not in kindergarten, right? I'm already working on a degree. So now, because I said to him that, okay, there was an Asian lady that was beside me. There was a Chinese guy. And I said, okay, is he writing in China? You understand what I'm saying? Because those are some moments where you need to hold your breath and you need to stand your grounds, right? I figured it out that to really make it on your own, know your rights. So I had to study the Constitution. They gave me a small booklet like this that I came out and said, I need to know so that when I'm speaking. So I need to,
Wow.
yeah, so putting all this together, lately I'm putting a book that I'm writing currently right now. It's called The Double Identity of an Immigrant. Immigrants suffer from double identity, This is how it's being done. We are here. We need to do it the way they do it so that we should be able to integrate into the system.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's been, man, 11 years back, 12 years back, looking at how far things have changed. It's crazy.
Yeah. And for me, I had different day ones, and I was thinking about what you guys were saying, and on the contextual level, yeah, I had different day ones. Welcome to America moments,
Right.
and I'm just now listening to you guys. I'm like, wow. My one of my probably saddest ones was probably, you need to hurry up and get to it in life. I was probably working in the hospital and just seeing the health habits.
Whoa.
Yeah. And working in units, being a certified nurse aide, medical aide, working at an Alzheimer's facility, and just the level of people that came and went, and just the exposure. I think I was called the N word by some patients, and at my second job, there was this guy who had a Purple Heart. No, he had a Medal of Honor. Sorry, and he had a dental practice that he gave off to his son. And he was just a gentleman, and you could tell his Alzheimer's just took him, but he was at peace. And then different units, you see the room is cold. The guy is a 67-year-old health, supposed to be healthy, but looks like a balloon. struggling, calling nurses, using profanity. Some of them, that's just the way they welcome death. So yeah, my exposure in the hospital setting and just seeing different walks of life go. Probably the biggest one, like I said, was probably when this lady had a liver failure.
Wow.
So she was really dusty, and she literally had this skin tone. She was like orange. And within a week, there was an obituary sign in the unit that she stayed in. Nurses were contemplating if they were gonna go, but she was 29.
That young.
Drank herself to death. So at that point, I was curious about trauma and how America was situated around it, how they dealt with it, and just the substance abuse and the way they just stayed around it, and how we just festered in people's lives, and how the hospital is made up of probably a good percentage of people who come from trauma and how they end up there. So that was a culture shock. The habits.
Wow.
On an emotional level too, how people were just not, they were gone, and you saw death in a different context. Two people can die differently, and you were just telling yourself, nah, I want to go like this guy. I don't want to go like that guy.
Yeah, it's really it's fascinating. When we look at things put here and there, there's so much that we'll be pouring out, especially as this is our first episode. We'll be looking on how did we settle. Let's look at the pathway which immigrants kind of take when they arrive here, right? What are the common field that they go in? Why do they go in, right?
Yeah.
So those are some of the key things that will be coming in our episode 2.
Okay.
So where we'll be looking at, okay, after this shock, we've touched here and there. Why did you land in this career? Then also too, I think episode 3 will be we'll lay the groundwork of those back home. Let's share our experience, because when you go and stand in where those beautiful beaches and New York, you stand, then you take that beautiful picture, then you send it to them. They think that's the reality. So heaven on earth. So we'll be trying to be breaking down more of these realities. Like Mr. Bruno, like you said, 3 jobs, 4 jobs.
Definitely.
I had a friend call me the other time. We're discussing. He said when he came here, he was under serious pressure where he had to take money from credit cards, not cash, borrow money from the credit card to send back home because he needed to keep the status.
Wow.
Yes,
because
the pressure.
Yeah,
and the fact that I'm already in the United States. You understand what I'm saying? So he'll borrow money from the credit card because there's nothing in his debit card.
That's funny because my parents actually, I remember them saying that once, how they took loan money just to go back home with. And then they come back and then they work and they pay it off.
So those are some of the realities that we need to be putting together. So I really want to thank you all for coming in today. There's more still to come.
Oh yeah, we just a lot.
We just laying the foundation. Hey, Mr. Bruno.
Definitely.
So, what's the one word that you say? Okay, this I will tell someone that when you are coming to United States, this is the reality, unadulterated.
I believe the bulk of the work falls on the people that are already here. I think we paint a fake image of what the United States is not. Now it's weird telling someone back home not to come over here because you'd be the worst person ever. Mm-hmm. They would consider you the worst person ever. Mm-hmm. You've succeeded, so why don't you want me to come succeed myself? Mm-hmm. So I think it falls on us here to paint the
right image,
the right image of how the United States is,
the truth image,
what it demands of you,
right? And I've shared with him a couple of times my standards for whoever I'm going to have to host in the United States. I shared with him once what I'm going to tell them prior to them coming over here, which is unfiltered expectations of what you're going to get, what I want to get here. I'm not filtering. I'm not sugarcoating anything because it makes sense to not do that.
You sweat.
Exactly. And that is not to discourage you or anything. It's to help you understand that what is needed from you the day you land here, not 6 months after, whatever. It's nothing but what you're gonna get once you get here.
Right.
So I think it falls on us to actually communicate in a more transparent way of how the United States actually work, and have people expect that when they come here, so they stop getting into it. Because they say if you keep doing the same thing over and over and expect different results, that's the definition of insanity. And I think we're kind of painting a different picture of what the United States is not.
I guess that's a question for another day, because I'm thinking the American dream, what they thought it was, and those who bought into it, those who still believe that it exists, those who were bamboozled and they just fell off. And I cannot be that person, versus I want to be like, oh man, this is the life. I don't care what anybody says.
Definitely.
So just looking at that perspective that's a question I'll ask you again. The American dream and how that feels.
It's gonna be. I want us to really talk about on this my day one in America, right? We're gonna talk about the American dream. I want everyone to define what is our American dream, right? So there's so much that that is in this particular episode that will be running. Once again, thank you all for coming in today.
Thank you.
Today we're in the Wisdom Bank podcast studio. I'm the host. I was in with Mr. Mike and Mr. Bruno. So as always, thank you all. Hey, dear viewers, make sure you subscribe and follow us for more episode. The cameras and the sound system was handled by Mr. Harris. And once again, thank you all. And until then, see you.
Thank you.